Hey everybody, it's Andy. Welcome back. Welcome back to my weekly show where I help you build a career you love. January 2019, my first show of the year. I missed you guys, which is why I got a great one for you today. We're going to talk about a number of things in the spirit of it being January and new beginnings, new inspirations. I want to invigorate or reinvigorate your job search, and I've got a phenomenal, I call it, it's like a Swiss Army knife tool for your job searching. It's my 10 by 10 job search formula. We're going to give that away right away in this show. I don't know why people always hold the gifts to the end, but we're going to go out with that. It's got 10 great steps that you should take in your job search, a whole bunch more. I'm going to show it to you here in a minute. And then after I introduce that and I kind of get you calibrated around the job search, we're going to dive into one of the most important elements. Here again, at the spirit of it being January and new beginnings and reinvigoration, I want to start at the beginning and help you. I'm going to show you exactly a wonderful process that you can go through to choose the right job for you. It's the exact same formula I used to change careers twice. You don't need to be a career changer to use it. The pro forma and the process is the same. We're going to get into what it is, why it's important, how to build it, how to use it. It's really great. I'm going to demo it for you so you can really understand how to go about this, because it's something that I think a lot of people really mess up. So glad to have everybody. If you are here with me live, get in the chat. Let me know who you are. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what you need. If you got any questions, put some question marks in the beginning of the of your question so I can find it. And if you're watching this on a recording, welcome to you too. Now, I talked about my 10 by 10 job search formula. If you've been with me for a while, and a while could even be just the last couple of weeks, but we're a couple of weeks here into January. And during this month, I always like to give you holistic job search approach tools. And I have been circulating, if you were on my email, this, don't worry, I'm going to show you the inside here in a second on the screen. But this is a booklet that I built. I've been calling it my Swiss Army knife for job searching. It is an assessment that takes just a few minutes for you to walk through, that'll help you illuminate the things you're doing well about your job search and the things you need to improve. And then after you go through that, there's a section in there on the 10 most important aspects of the job search, the 10 steps that I would take in each of the areas that will give you the biggest bang for your buck, and also the biggest mistakes that people make. So there's even a little troubleshooting section. It's really wonderful. If you've been with me, you probably have gotten it over the last couple of weeks, along with 3 email lessons. One on developing self-awareness and doing some self-assessing. The second one is on networking. And the third email lesson is on job interviewing. If you have not gotten those, don't worry about it. There's a link in the description. Actually, Kara, could you also maybe add a link to the chat so people can grab it? You grab it, you get the download right away. And then immediately, I think shortly thereafter, the way we have it set up is you'll get the first email lesson, and then over the next 2 mornings, you'll get the next ones. Let me show you what this looks like inside, and I want to just take a quick moment and show you what we actually have here. This is the booklet. There's a little bit on me. Really, the most important thing about my bio is probably the links for you to get some additional goodies. And then, like I mentioned, there's an assessment in here. And I've highlighted in this booklet the 10 most important elements I think there are in the job search. And it starts with self-assessing. And actually, to give you a little foreshadowing here, we're gonna talk a bunch about this today. Actually, the whole lesson, the detailed lesson, is going to be about that. But you can rate yourself based on the guidelines that I've given you here. And then it walks you through. The first part is self-assessing. The second part is doing your homework to investigate the employers, then marketing yourself. That's things like your resume, your covers, your LinkedIn. How do you pitch yourself? That's actually a little bit more explicit about cover lettering. Then the search itself. That's number 5. It goes through, how are you networking effectively? I give you some qualitative stuff there. Are you preparing effectively for the for the interviews. Are you interviewing well? Are you continuing the dialogue beyond the interview to gain yourself some points? It's really, really important to be able to set yourself apart there. And then, negotiating. Sorry if that got a little small here. That's my hand. That's my hand slipping. And then there's some other little elements here. There's a whole webinar, How to Find a Job You Love. That's about an hour-long webinar that you can watch that goes into detail on each of these sections if you want a little bit more help. Then as we get into the grid here, the areas that I just showed you are outlined here in the column on the left. And then what those areas are, what the biggest mistakes are that people make when they do each one of those steps, and then what the pro tip is for you to make sure that you're getting yourself started in the right, going down the right path in each of these areas. So it's absolutely a wonderful booklet. You can see that. It goes through all that stuff. That's free. And then I also give you the email lessons that go along with it. So in the area of self-assessing, in the area of networking, and in the areas of interviewing, those are three, in my opinion, those are the three most important areas of your overall job search to get it right. I know you got to put a nice resume together. I know you got to do a lot of other stuff, but I've got a lot of stuff out there that you can go at. So I want you to have that gift. If you don't have it, go grab it. Go grab it. It's really, really important that you're looking at this thing systematically, and that you have the right steps and you know what to do in each one of them. So grab that. And the second part of today is really about, I was thinking about January and at first I thought I might walk you through all these, and I thought, well, I already have the How to Find a Job You Love webinar out there. If you want to go watch that, you can do that. So I didn't want to reprise that here live. It's there for all of you to access. I thought it might be better to talk about what I think, my humble opinion, is the most important, the most neglected, the area where you introduce the biggest mistakes that you make in your process, and it's also job searching process and career and overall career, and it's also the spot where you likely cost yourself happiness, the most happiness, because you do not do this. And what am I talking about? This is about being self-aware, self-internalization, actualization, realization, assessing what it is through reflection of what it is that you need and using that information. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what it is that I'd like you to do. Now, this could be as simple, just to conceptualize this, and hang with me here because I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. But this could be as simple as making a list. Just making a list. What is it that what is it that drives your happiness? What is it that you need? The must-haves, the nice-to-haves, those kind of things. And, you might be thinking, well, Andy, I know myself. I don't really need to do any self-awareness, analyzation. I don't need to make a list. I've been living with myself for 50 years or 30 years or whatever it might be. And I understand what you mean, and you probably do know yourself at a high level. But I would also say that I, as an executive recruiter, and my firm, MileWalk, who has interviewed more than 15,000 people, I've personally interviewed more than 12,000 people, and in all of those interviews, as we pose these questions to people, because we want to make sure that as a recruiter, we are making sure that we are not only working on behalf of our customers to find them the right people, but we're also the people that we are recruiting. We want to make sure that we are matching them with the right opportunities. So it's important for us to ask up front what it is that drives your happiness. And when we do that to every single person that we've ever talked to, most of them really, really struggle with it. And why is that? Think about this. Most of you have probably never even job searched. You really haven't. You probably have job changed. Some of you've job searched, I'm sure. But think about the process that you would go through when you were just job changing, where somebody called you and friend called you, recruiter called you, and you thought, hey, that's a great opportunity. I'm going to entertain it. Well, that's not really job searching. And you probably haven't gone through that exercise of sitting down and creating that list to the extent that you truly know what makes you happy. So when we pose these questions to the people that we speak with, most of them have a very, very difficult time telling us what it is exactly that they like, what it is that they like. It's very difficult. It's easy for you to tell me what you don't like. It's easy for you to tell me what you don't like. Something's missing. I need it. I need it. Something is in my way. I need it removed, and so on. It's painful. But think about if I gave you a blank sheet of paper and asked you to list everything you need. You'd probably have a difficult time with it. And the magic here is not in knowing you should do this reflection, but actually doing it and then using it correctly. And why is this important? Why is it important to make a simple list, or actually a little more exotic one like I'm going to show you? But why is it important to make a list? Because when you think about it, if you are going to make good decisions, you need to know what drives your happiness. And you need to create some type of tool in order to evaluate your options. So when you think about it, this is really about making great choices. If you have a list of things that drive you, you are going to be able to make great choices if you measure your options or create your options against that list. So think in terms of your career. What career should I have? What employer should I choose? Even if I'm within an organization, within roles, should I stay as an analyst in this unit? Or should I go be a product engineer in that unit? Those kinds of things. You are continually making choices. And even if you're choosing just between staying put in your current job or going somewhere else, you're choosing between two options. If you're sitting on the couch right now, or maybe you're in the living room with me on the big screen, you're still choosing between that and something that might become available to you. So you have to have a process. Now, before we get into the here's how, I want to run through the areas that I think people make the grossest mistakes and why people fail miserably at just this entire decision-making process. And the first thing is that, and I mentioned this a few minutes ago, when you think about choices, and a lot of you haven't really necessarily job searched. Well, if you are approached unsolicited, I called you as a recruiter, hey, this nice recruiter guy called me, sure, I'd entertain the call. My friend called me and said, hey, we've got an opening for an engineer at my company. I think you'll love it. Maybe you're a little worried about losing your job, and you are faced with something that is driving you to choose, but you go into reactive mode. Think about what's happening in these situations. I'm guessing a lot of you have done this, right? You go into reactive mode because an opportunity surfaced itself and you didn't do anything to surface it, or something external happened. So what's actually happening in that case? Now immediately you start evaluating the world from the outside in. Instead of being deliberate and evaluating yourself first, you're evaluating a choice and then you're measuring it against yourself. That's the wrong direction. We want to think internally and we want to move outward. So we want to think about ourselves and evaluate ourselves first. Then we want to look at, surface the options and evaluate them as need be. And even if opportunities come to us, it's still much better not to react to something in front of us and make sure that we have our own internal benchmark. So that's something that I see people fail. And even if you had no intention of searching, you are never more at risk of making a poor choice than when somebody comes to you with an option and you weren't ready for it. Even if it was the best thing that could have ever happened to you, it's still just as far as the riskiness goes. So the reactive mode is really, really bad. The second one is you're not thorough enough. If I was sitting in an auditorium with you all right now, I'd probably start asking you questions and having you raise your hand. If you want to do this in the chat, that's fine. But some of you might have made a list. Think about this. Okay, so here's the audience poll. Raise your hand. You can go in the chat if you want to. How many of you, before you job search, actually made a list of everything that you wanted before you took your first step? There probably would be a small show of hands. And then if I asked you, did you do it in advance of your first step to looking at opportunities, there probably would be fewer of you still. And then if I said, how many of you had, say, 20 to 25 minimum on your requirements, there would be even fewer still. And what's happening, the shorter that list, the greater the likelihood that you have gaps in your information. You're making more assumptions and you have more blind spots. The longer your list, say 20, 30 items, something like that on your list, the greater the chance, not the guarantee, but the greater the chance that you have more information and you're making a more informed decision. And what happens when you make a more informed decision? It's a better decision. At least it's better, it's more educated. So the second reason why I think a lot of people have hiccups is they just don't do the deep work to the extent that they need to. And I'm going to show you what I mean by need to and that level of depth. The third thing, this one's kind of funny. I was thinking about this morning when I was running and what story I wanted to tell you about this. But you overemphasize recency. We're human, folks. We're human. So here's what happens. If something, and I mentioned this a few minutes ago too, if something is bothering you right at this moment, and I said to you, hey, Susie, can you tell me what it is that you don't like about your current situation? You probably could rattle it off, right? I don't make enough. My commute's too far. I travel too much. I hate my boss. He's a micromanager. Company's not going anywhere. I'm not learning anything, whatever it might be. Those would be very, very easy for you to give me because they're top of mind. They're top of mind, right? And they're the sore spots. And we get more sore about the sore spots. The lows are lower for the lows than the highs are higher for the highs, if you know what I mean. I was thinking about, well, I'm a huge football fan. Those of you that know me well know I love my beloved Chicago Bears. So when I think about, they just gave me like 18, 20 weeks of absolute bliss. It was a phenomenal season beyond anybody's expectations. I loved watching I watch all the games no matter what. But now instead of just watching the games, I'm watching all the sports analysis, reading everything, having loads and loads of fun, but Sunday they lost. I haven't slept in 4 days because it hurts. It's on my mind. And I try to remember and think holistically what a wonderful season and all the joy. But as a fan, it's emotional. And you, as a human in a job, it's emotional. It hurts. So what people tend to do is they tend to place greater weight on the things that are wrong at the moment instead of looking at the whole picture. So your boss might be a micromanager, but that could be rectified very quickly. And just because that's rectified in your new job doesn't mean that all the other things that you need, that you've enjoyed and the luxuries you've had over the last 10 or 20 or 30 years or whatever it's been, are automatically going to come with this new package. So you need to do the deep work to make sure you got a complete list to know everything that you need and that you prioritize it and rank it based on the priority to you, not the priority to you at the moment. Right? Right at this moment, your boss you're not loving your boss. But you always want a boss who's loving, supportive, provides you autonomy, helps you grow, and so on. You will always want that. You just don't have it at the moment. So you want to make sure that gets a high priority, but no higher than it normally would. So that's what I mean about overemphasizing recency. And then, those are kind of the three biggies, and I don't even want to call this one a bonus because this one's a fact and something that you can't do much about until I show you what to do. And this is not a knock on you because I'm going to make a little fun of myself right here. But you just ain't skilled in getting the information from an employer to know if they will actually satisfy your criteria. So let's just say, sake of argument, let's just say you took the time, you actually made your list. Okay, I made my list. Andy, I made my list. I sat down, I made the 10, 20, 30 things, whatever you made me make. Okay, so I make the list. Now what? Now you got to go on an interview. Do you know what questions to ask that will actually elicit the information from the employer to know if they will be able to satisfy your criteria? So that's not something you do very often. You shouldn't change jobs very often, hopefully. So it's very difficult. So not only do you have to be self-aware and know exactly what it is that you need, but you also need to be somewhat of a skilled interrogator to know how to elicit that information. So let's talk about skills here for a second. Because you all, I love my people. I think you all are great at your jobs. You might not be great at job searching, but you're great at your jobs. Okay, so you get the benefit of the doubt from me. So whatever your trade is, well, a few years ago and way beyond, my trade, hiring, job searching, and all of that stuff, I was a pro. 3 years ago, I was a pro too. So 3 years ago, or a couple years ago, I decided that I wanted to take my trade and teach you my trade in this format, where I would be talking through the lens and be able to put recorded videos together for posterity, do live streams, and so on. Well, if you needed my coaching 3 years ago and you wanted to come here and sit down at my wonderful table and get coached by me, awesome. I could coach the hell out of you. I could give you a lot of good stuff. Very good. You'd think expert, knows what he's doing. That was great. I understand it. I'll go do it. You wanted to talk to me on the phone? No problem. Got you covered. I could whistle it right to you, show you what you needed to do, and off you'd go. But put an inanimate object in front of me, and then make me teach my concepts to the camera, where you weren't even sitting behind it at that time. And even though I knew my subject matter, it was very difficult. So if you look at some of my earliest videos, go ahead and have a laugh if you want, you might think, hey, that content's pretty darn good, but that doesn't even sound like Andy. That doesn't even sound like that guy. He's so stiff. And what did I do at that time when I was learning how to do this, which is like you interviewing? Made myself some notes. Stuck them there right on the screen or underneath the little camera thing or whatever. So I had notes in case I forgot. Now I don't use, the note cards here, these ain't for me. These are for you now. Okay? But in the past, I needed the notes. So what are we going to do? We got to teach you how to build some notes for you so that you have the crutch you need so that when you go into these interviews, even if you're not a skilled interrogator, at least you will know what conversations you need to have and have some dialogue around it to get the information you need to know if it can satisfy all those things that you need. Your requirements, your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, your really nice-to-haves. So let's get into let's talk a little bit about what it is that I want you to do, and then let me show you what it is I'd like you to do. So the first thing conceptually is I just want you to make a list. Okay, it could be a simple list, but I want it to be long. I want it to be a list of what you must have, what is nice to have, and what is really nice to have. Do not worry about adding stuff into the list that you think, I'll never get it. She'll never have all those qualities. I'm never going to find a wife. I'm never going to find a husband. I'm never going to find a company. Don't worry about it. I want this list long and distinguished. Okay, I want it as long as possible. Don't worry, you can rank them. You don't need to get everything. You just need to have everything on your list so that you can take that into context as you evaluate. So the longer the list, the better. The longer the list, the better. And just make sure you get everything you could possibly imagine on that list. And I'll show you the kind of things I mean here in a second. I want you to make it your list. Don't make it my list. Don't make it anybody else's list. Make it your list. Don't worry about what mom and dad say. Don't worry about what Uncle Tom told you should be doing. Don't worry about going to law school if you don't like the law, and don't go take your accounting classes or CPA exam if you don't like numbers. Okay, so make it your list. You've got to live with yourself every day, all the time. So make it your list. Make sure you make it your list. And then the other thing is kind of an extension of that, but please make it internal. Make it internal. So it's one thing to make it somebody else's list. Hey, dad told me I should do this. Mom wants me to study engineering because, there are no art jobs out there, or museums ain't hiring or whatever. I ain't going to make any money and I have to live in the basement. That's different. That's external factors of what other people want for you. That's what I'm talking about when I say yours. When I'm talking about internal, I want you to make this internal and present moment. Meaning, don't you try to be Nostradamus and predict the future. Well, I need to do this so that in a year I could do that, and then 2 years after that I can do that, and then that's what my career is going to look like, and I'm going to retire at 52 and be rich and all this good stuff. I got news for you. I really stink at predicting my future, and I'd be even worse at predicting yours. Don't listen to anybody or don't start speculating about what you think is going to happen tomorrow. It's crazy. And here are a couple reasons why. So number one, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know if the stock market's going to crash. You don't know if the financial services industry is going to crater. You don't know if your software company is going to get bought up by that other company, go public, divest, merge, or whatever. You have no clue, and it will never happen the exact way you think it will. But the second reason, forget all that for a second. The second reason is really the most important. Imagine you. Just close your eyes for a second, keep listening to me, and imagine yourself in a role right now. You love what you do. You love the people around you. You enjoy the travel or the commute or working from home or whatever. Just imagine this for a second. And you're learning and you feel challenged, but it's not painful. Wouldn't that be pretty damn good? Wouldn't you be happy? Wouldn't you do your job better? Wouldn't you learn more? Wouldn't you be more enthusiastic? I could go on and on and on. And I guarantee you, you live each day like that, those ops are just going to fall right in your lap. It's like you're going to be walking around the world with a big horseshoe on your head. Okay, so stay in the present moment. Do not try to speculate. I have no problem with you keeping context. Like, do I want to get in an industry that's going, that might present more opportunities for me? Do I want to, telecom doesn't really, flatter me, or manufacturing. I like financial services more. That's cool. I'm cool with that. I'm just saying, don't try to predict the future. Don't try to, I laugh at people that don't take jobs with me, with the right companies, because they think that 5 years from now something's going to happen. So in 2013, I had absolutely no idea that the following year I was going to be a recruiter. None. Zilch. So please don't try to predict the future. Okay, wait, one more, then we go to show and tell. Try to make it 20 items minimum. 20 items minimum. You're going to see some here now in the show I'm going to do for you, the demo. But the longer, the better. If you come to me with 50, I'll be happy. You come to me with 60, I'll be happier. You come to me with 70, I'll be even happiest. But at a minimum, if you don't have 20 things that you care about, I'm talking everything, right? Who I get to work with, what I get to do, the training I get to take, what the comp looks like, healthcare, all that stuff, then you don't have a long enough list to make a good decision. You've got way too many gaps and too many blind spots. So let's do this. Let's go into, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. And this is the process that I went through when I changed careers. And this kind of came, actually, if you're in software, this might resemble like a software package evaluation protocol. So, but really what we're doing is we're making a list of requirements, and then we're using that to evaluate our career options and our different employers or roles or whatever. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So let me pop this up on the screen. Let me take a sip of my beautiful almond latte that I made right before the show. That's probably cold now. All right, you should be seeing a spreadsheet, and I love this spreadsheet. This, by the way, this spreadsheet is, my boot campers get this all filled out. What you are looking at now on this top row are, there's criteria. This is what I'm talking about, making your list. Column A is your list. Column B is your sub list. So these things in column A are really kind of high-level areas that people care about. Now, you're seeing some names there like appreciation, atmosphere, autonomy, and those areas are basically the areas that most people in the world that I've interviewed, this is what they care about. So remember I said, hey, we've evaluated 15,000 people. Well, column A and what you're seeing and what I started to fill in for people, for my boot campers, is those 15 things: appreciation, autonomy, atmosphere, boss, challenge. Is it a collaborative environment? commute, growth, people, role, that kind of stuff, my traveling. And there's about 15 or 16 of the top things that people generally care about. But in each of those areas, and I partially, you might, if you're looking over here on the leftmost column and you see those numbers and you see all those skips, well, below each one of these are all the secondary criteria where the real money happens, and that's where you break out. So culture, for example, in and of itself isn't a criteria. I mean, culture is made up of the adjectives that you would use to describe the culture. So what you want to do is you want to blow this out. So what are the ones that you care about? So now in here in this list, there are 20 of them, but I'm just showing you 3 for illustrative purposes. Is it an advance-based? Is it an apolitical environment or really political environment? Is it open and welcoming and communicative or not? And then others are, entrepreneurial and all that good stuff. But basically what you do is you kind of give yourself these little groupings and you're making a list. So, you can put it all in one column. It really doesn't matter. But I like to show people that there was a high level assessment that we made from all the people that we spoke with, and this is what they cared about. Now, you don't need to care about that, but isn't it like way better to go from a tool and then cross stuff out than try to generate this from scratch? So because this exercise is so painful, the people that enrolled in my bootcamp, I wanted them to have an awesome starting point so that they can do this quickly and have a very complete view. So I think this entire spreadsheet is something like 80, 86, 87 lines. But you get my gist. Make the list. Then, okay, that's great. You reflected. You made your list. But now what? Well, make sure you blow out the secondary criteria, and then here's what you do. Based on what's important to you, you want to go and you want to rank it. Remember I said, hey, the boss thing, my boss who's a micromanager might be very painful right now, but you want to take the emotion out of this very emotional decision and you want to make it more objective. The way for you to make it more objective is to go through, identify everything that you need, everything that you need in these columns, and then go and put a numerical value on how much appreciation is important to you. Maybe this is a 10. Maybe this is, maybe this is a 5. What did I just do there? Hang on a second. Sorry, slip of the hand. So maybe it's a 5. Atmosphere, maybe that's a 5, and so on. So anyway, you want to go through and you want to rate the importance. And what this does is it gives you a universal benchmark to measure all of your evaluations and your opportunities. Then what you want to do is everybody who is in this, here, hang on, let me see if I can very quickly without. Everybody who is in here watching this, you likely have an employer that you were currently at. That's fine. Your first evaluation should be your current employer. Take stock in what you're currently doing. So even if you just left a job or you got to go, give yourself an assessment. Here, let's get down here. Give yourself an assessment of how you would score your current employer. What this does is it lets you dispassionately, I mean that in a good way, look at, well, what did I actually have where I am? Am I as really unhappy as I think? Or could I fix the boss thing or the autonomy? If I got more autonomy and that 3 became an 8 or a 9, in my assessment of how closely it aligned for me and my liking, then would I be happier? Maybe I should go to my boss and say, listen, can you give me some more autonomy to improve my happiness for my current state? That is a choice. That is actually a great place for you to start. So my point to this is all of you are choosing between at least 2 things, whether it's one career or another, or one employer or another, or my current employer, and now I'm going to bring myself to the market, and you will have a second option if you ultimately leave. So the first thing you want to do is take some stock of where you are. And then what you would do is you would just go in here and score yourself in this column, and you basically would come up with a weighted average. So what you have here is 5 times 5 is 25 points. And then although I scored higher in autonomy, that's more important to me, but my current situation says I don't really have a lot of autonomy. That's a 3. That gets 24 points. What you do is you score it up and you give yourself a number. Now, this number is relatively arbitrary, but as you bring yourself to the market and you start evaluating different careers, right? Let's see if I can. As you start evaluating different careers, sorry about that. In column I, then what you want to do is you want to assess, if you go on an interview, if you go on an interview, you start scoring the new employer. So if the atmosphere is 5 most important to me, how does this new potential employer actually fit? How does the new employer, is the boss going to provide me autonomy? How much do I like the boss? What's the challenge look like? And then that's automatically scored for you. 5 times 8 is 40. And basically what you're doing is you're giving yourself a weighted average, and it looks like this option is considerably greater when I factor in everything that's important to me in the weight in which it's important. And so what this is helping you do is neutralize between different careers that you might need to investigate, different employers that you might need to investigate, and different roles within an employer that you might need to investigate. But it all goes back to making sure that you have this list and you understand this column A is that you are making a list that's helping you actually, sorry folks, let me see if I can move this. There you go. This list that's actually helping you determine how things align to you. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. The point is, make the list, make your priorities, and score them up. So this is my current situation. This is a potential new option for me. This is another new option for me. Some of you are weighing options between different employers. But this is a great way to use that list to measure everything against yourself internally. And by the way, it is never too late to put that together. It is never too late to put that together. So if you might need to rewatch the recording, but don't worry. So this is recorded for you, so you can kind of go back and jot those things down. But the thing that I want to make sure that you understand, bear with me here as I move some things around the screen. The point is that most people, when they go into these modes, when they go into reactive mode, they start looking at the surface of things and the pretty people and the artwork on the walls and other things that they get distracted by, and they lose sight of what's important to them. They lose sight of what's important to them. Have you ever bought a car and you go into the car dealership and you get out of your car that's like 8 years old or 10 or 20 years old, and you walk in and you get in there, you smell the seats, and you're distracted by the lights on the dashboard, and you start forgetting that safety's really important and other things are really important, and that this car got really bad reviews because its airbags weren't deploying on like 60% of its crashes or whatever. You know, like that's the kind of stuff that happens. So what you need is a checklist to make sure that you are looking at the right stuff the right way in the right relation to all your criteria. And a tool like that, you build one of your own. Join my boot camp, you get one for free with the boot camp. Of course, you got to pay the the money to get in the program. But that's the important thing. So what we're trying to do here is make sure that you are being proactive. So if you are just starting your process, this is one of the best places to start. If you are in the middle of interviewing, get this tool in order and start using it for the things that you're going through. And even if maybe you interviewed and you didn't get something, start looking at the gaps. And then as new opportunities surface, use this. And if you're midway through with some organization, build the tool and start evaluating them. And if you didn't ask questions related to those topics, then go back to the employer and ask them. So for every item that you have on your list, You should have a question for the employer to know whether the employer can satisfy it. That's kind of the second step in the process. But the first place we got to start is making sure that you got your list. All right, so I hope you like that. For those of you that are watching this on the recording, I'm going to say so long, and I'll see you in a week or so.